Welcome to Mac and Bleu, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. For all things Mac and Bleu, head to www.macandbleu.com and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Now let's join our host, JJ Levinsky.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Mac and Bleu. I'm JJ Levinsky, your host, president and co-founder of Blue Wave General Contracting. Today I have Brian Melcher, who's the principal, president, CEO, head janitor, street sweeper of Field Verified. Did I get that right?
All those things.
Did I miss any credentials on you?
No.
Father, husband.
Yeah.
Degenerate.
Yes.
No, come on, that was mean. But I've talked to some of his employees, and they might say that. No. So the cool part, let's see. When Brian and I, when did we talk? Probably 6 months ago?
About
6 months ago?
Might have been this year.
Okay, so with that, what's going to be fun about today is Brian represents an industry that I have a strong past in, back to the upper Midwest, which I call building science. A lot of people here in Arizona don't know what that means, but in the rest of the country where water intrusion and the building envelope is a big deal, you've brought a lot of systematic and cool ideas and just great innovations and things to the market. So with that, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I am happy to be here. It did take a little while to get our schedules to line up.
But we're good. We're good. So for the audience's sake, Brian, give everyone a little bit of background as far as like, I mean, I don't want to know what your 8th grade teacher's name was, but like, did you grow up here? What did you do for school? And then like, how did it get to lead up to where you started Field Verified?
Yeah, lead up to a career that no one understands.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So I grew up in San Diego, East Valley there. And
out in the desert of San Diego.
Yeah. Really, which was great because it didn't get cloudy out there.
Right.
I hate cloudy days. So all like 200 that I've experienced between San Diego and then Phoenix. I loved.
So you're not going to Seattle anytime soon? Is that what you're saying?
Not at all. Not at all. It's a saturated market anyways. Yeah. But so grew up there, high school, good student, really good student.
He's lying.
But I started ditching school.
Now he validated my claim.
In my junior year, I would strategically miss classes and started painting houses. Worked with someone in the neighborhood.
You were an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I didn't know it then. Let's see, from there, got into some framing and my senior year was, getting papers signed by different people so I could keep playing sports, but only went to a couple of classes at the junior college and went to prom, graduated, all went according to plan. And then I always planned on going into accounting because I was good at math. And so I applied to U of A and never went. Had some life events that kept me home.
Yeah.
And that just thrust me even more into framing. And so in California, framers install windows. In fact, I started working for a new general contractor, and so we did everything. We'd tear off a roof, we'd tear off stucco, we'd put it back, and that kind of began the building enclosure foundation that I had.
Your exposure then.
Right.
Yeah. No pun intended.
Seeing what leaked and getting yelled at to put it back the right way.
Well, then there's nothing better than getting paid to do it twice, Brian. So you were way ahead of your game.
And then moved here to Phoenix 20 years ago. So pretty much most of my adult life.
So then go 20 years ago, because Field Verified is what, 10
years, yeah.
10
years
okay, so what happened in those first 10 years here in the Valley then with you?
Yeah, so I served a mission for my church in Cambodia and then came back and built a house for a gentleman that the last house I built, he owned a company called Quality Built that did third-party inspections for insurance companies.
Okay.
And so I started working for them. That was when I entered kind of the quality assurance world. And very quickly, like within a year, they partnered with another engineering firm that was a nationwide firm. And worked with them for 9 years, continuing to grow in building enclosure. And really all self-taught. There wasn't a lot on the internet. So
No.
I guess when I say self-taught, the knowledge, I sought out the knowledge myself. But it really was subcontractors, trade partners who taught me every step of the way. So,
And that was, no, back in those days, was it primarily residential or commercial?
it was primarily residential right up through 2007. Before anyone knew there was a recession, we had no work.
Right.
So quickly I learned everything I could about commercial enclosures. We realized, I don't think the company I worked for realized that you couldn't we used to do the whole home. Mm-hmm. I was post-tension certified, electrical and plumbing training, of course the framing experience, roofing and windows, but you can't do that on a hospital. So I narrowed my focus to building enclosure. I think I read everything on the internet in 2008. There wasn't a lot.
You found both ends of it?
Yeah, really. Got some certifications that existed and, made the youthful mistakes of announcing my certifications as my qualifications. And remain grateful for the trade partners that would say, hey, would you like to go up on the scaffold and maybe learn something about EFIS or curtain wall? And, took me under their wing and taught me.
Now, if I go back to about my period of being exposed at, like right when the recession was starting, about 2009 and 10, same thing. That's kind of where I got my exposure back with the USGBC and stuff. Now, were you doing anything with them formally at that time, or did they have content out that you were absorbing from USGBC? Do you remember?
Yeah, so USGBC had the LEAD program.
Right.
Is that what you're thinking of?
Well, but they had some other things too beyond that, didn't they? At that time, again, forgive my memory. You're younger than me, but
and Chicago's such a hub for building enclosure, and even you go back to what we know about rooftops and fires. Everything we know about how to keep a roof from catching on fire comes from every fire that occurred in Chicago.
True.
So you may have been exposed to things that I couldn't find.
Okay.
I did get that LEAD accredited professional certification before it had an expiration date. So, yes. They're still trying to trick me into signing up for the one that expires.
Don't pay the bills. Okay, so then what prompted you when did you become what was that moment in time when you were like, hey, I'm going to start my own company?
Yeah, there were kind of two moments. There was, the moment of realizing I couldn't find what I wanted to provide for my family.
Right.
I would love for there to be this, I just needed the world to be a better place. I did for my wife and my 3 kids at the time. And I knew I had a skill set, and I was actually at a friend's house. He's a dentist, and it was like a birthday party. There were a few people there. And I said to him, I know I have the skill set that people will pay for. I know I can do this. I said, I just don't, I don't have a business degree. I don't know how to run a business. And he's like, I'm a dentist. I don't have a business degree. I run my own practice. And then he puts his arm around our friend Brad, and he's like, Brad doesn't have a business degree. He runs his own business. I think he was doing appraisals. Oh. And appraisals was just close enough that I was like, you know what? If people will pay me and I understand the billing process and adding value, maybe I should sit down and math out what it would take to just provide for my family. So that was the original plan, was just to provide for my family, have enough work. So that was 2013. Happened pretty quick. The name Field Verified, I still say, is a gift from God, because the other options were like Melcher Consulting,
Sounds like a proctologist.
Yeah, it doesn't last. And
no offense. Look at my last name. I'd be like, oh yeah, who's the Pollock?
Right. Well, we shut that down quick, and Field Verified has just turned out perfectly. It comes from we've all seen it on drawings. Verify in field or field verify. It means we don't know what we're going to do. Somebody figure it out.
I love that.
So
Layla quote that one.
Yeah, it's worked out well as we've spread our wings and grown more than I thought. In fact, in the beginning, someone said, hey, are you going to do window testing and things like that? And I said, no, I'm going to leave that to the professionals. I'm going to do what I'm good at, looking at drawings, doing site visits, helping the...
So is that how it all started, Brian, then? So take the audience through the first year of business, like what you actually did the first year.
Yeah, so first year, the first...
Other than hang out at Sonic.
Other than be totally naive to landing a project meant you got a little bit of work and then 9 months before they started again. So I was fortunate to have some really good clients right away. Baylor Scott & White in healthcare in Texas.
Was that connect? It had to be relationship based, right?
Yeah, it definitely
Okay.
was. And it's really, there was somebody from Phoenix who had moved out there.
Oh.
And I call these people kind of the early believers. So we won't ever forget those who gave us our opportunity. So Baylor Scott and White Healthcare, great group there. Let's see, GLHN Architects and Engineers from down in Tucson working on U of A projects. And then even an Oakland project early on. They sat me down. That was the first time they sat me down and really grilled me. They hadn't known me before.
Right.
And so that first year we landed those projects.
Now, were those, again, for the audience's sake and just to put it in context, Brian, were those code-driven, or was it because of the funding resources? Because, once the Fed and the state starts doing funding and they have an initiative, like I can speak back to Minnesota where I was at during that time. I'll give you an example. Like it was kind of like PPP projects, the private public sector part of the initiatives there were when we were looking at those projects, that's what got us into the building science thing. We had kind of a passion and an affinity like you do, but yet at the same token, the government was incentivizing us to do these initiatives, like the energy performance on the thermal envelope, the water mitigation and all those, or prevention, things like that. Did you see was there a similar course down here in the Southwest, or was that completely different?
No, I would have loved that.
Okay.
In fact, we would love some government incentives for our type of work. But no, really just the environment and the cost of energy here.
Got it.
I think people tolerate cranking up their AC, and we live in a climate where winter's perfect, right?
Right.
You open the windows and you close them at night. And so I think that's really driven the delay in Arizona on energy and performance. Where we saw our work come from were from really conscious owners that understood, and builders that understood that they wanted to provide something that would last. And so building enclosures, the number one payout for insurance claims, which means it's the number one thing shutting down facilities. And so you had owners and builders that really valued what service they provided in healthcare and in education. And so we saw those as the drivers. Those still continue to be our biggest.
And back then, the AE market, the architects and engineers, they really didn't have resources like you to go to, did they?
No, there wasn't a lot. There's some big firms, and there's still the big firms.
Right.
Everybody kind of had their favorite, and truthfully, they were all about 65 years old. So now, being around for 10 years, we've seen we pick up a lot of that work because there wasn't they basically lived out the life I thought I had planned, which was sole proprietor, doing performance review or document reviews, and then when they were done, that was the end. And so we thank them for that too. But we saw, even now we don't see the architects really engaging a building enclosure consultant as often, simply because the owner or the contractor has already done that.
Got it.
We see great local builders that also set out a policy to just always have someone like Field Verified on the job.
So we didn't get ahead of ourselves, but we were kind of going down this path. Let's go back to just so the audience kind of knows what Field Verified all does. So give the whole family of services and go into a little bit of explanation of each, because then we can bring it together and talk a bunch of other cool stuff after that.
Yeah. So the challenge for you is going to be to keep me succinct on each one, because I'm so passionate about
Layla,
each of
give me
them.
a 2x4 and I'll slap him upside the head when he gets
Right. Well, I was thinking maybe like a discrete signal, but okay.
We do have a shock collar from the dog that's usually around here. We can
Yeah. Put it around my ankle.
All right, so dive in the best you can, because we got. I wrote down some cheat things like testing, the lab, thermal design, training, all those kind of things.
Yeah, perfect.
So with that,
yeah, maybe I'll go just chronologically. So where we started
that'd be
was
easier.
Document review. So we're looking at, sometimes people call it a peer review, but when a set of drawings has progressed, we look at the exterior enclosure details.
Okay.
We're looking at everything from just looking at elevations and cut sheets to see what's missing. A lot of times there's details missing, and a review only focuses on what's there and having comments on it. So we'll do both of those, really trying to help the design team and the builder have a complete set of documents,
Okay.
so that everybody can build it the way it's supposed to be built for the cost that's intended. And so we're identifying scope gap as well as function. Our experience as
What were the, again, maybe not so much now, but back in the early days, what were the quintessential, top items that you consistently saw? Was it flashing and counter flashing details or
Yeah,
what?
just holes in the overlap. In the last decade, air barriers have really evolved to where we expect them all the time.
But back then, no.
No, and so overlap that would shed water was adequate, but now we needed to start to seal things up. And now we see every air barrier type product is either fluid applied or it's self-adhesive, so it does that. It sticks and it seals it up.
But back then, no, not so much.
Right.
Mechanically fastened, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and metal just interrupts things all the time.
Yep.
So really that was probably the big one, metal flashing, interrupting conditions. The other big issue was just identifying areas where 3 products were coming together, and we call that the evil 3. And basically, it can't be detailed. We work in 2 dimensions. And so we would identify on the drawings those areas that were going to leak because they're not detailed. They're left to contractors to figure out. So those are the big issues that we would figure out. And that's really just like circling, hey, we need to pay attention to these spots as we build. So that's the second part of our service was the field quality assurance.
Well, hold on. Before you go to the second component, go back to the first one, which was the review. That was then. So that was 100% of your business in the beginning.
Right.
What does that compromise your business now? Or, how much is it?
It's probably about 15 to 20%.
So it's diminished quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and always tied to that was...
not in a bad way. It's just because we're going to get into why, right?
Well, and we like it. It's, we've worked out our processes to where it's a profitable scope of work for us, and we, now we just work to deliver it better than anyone else, so we can take care of that. That always leads into field quality assurance.
Okay.
So that means we're helping review submittals. From those submittals, we create project-specific checklists. We've evolved that now to where we'll give checklists for subcontractors to use, for installers to use, a shortened, really concise product. And then we're there on a weekly basis, reviewing progress. Certainly we're putting lots of photos in the file for conforming work, but we're really trying to anticipate issues before they occur. So the weekly visit is key for that.
So in the context of the audience who know, a lot of them probably know like special inspections, which, have to be done for the municipality or whoever the jurisdiction is. Do you operate in that capacity as well on special inspections?
So you touched on this earlier about was it code driven or not?
Right.
The building code for water is do not allow the accumulation of moisture within the wall cavity. That's it. So it's like they just wash their hands of it.
It's fake.
There's no special inspections required.
Right. So not like a bunch of our brothers and sisters that work at the companies that are out testing the welds and testing the compressive strength of the concrete, and all those kind of things. You serve in the same capacity, but it's not quote unquote the same special inspection.
Yeah,
it's driven by either the owner, the lender, the whatever. I mean, you're servicing the same need, but in a different parameter.
Right. And we see it, repeat customers all the time. Right. It's the same mindset. There is one exception, which is EFIS or EAFS, depending on where you're from. But EFIS is a code-required inspection. Either if it's drainable, you have to have the weather barrier behind it, the air barrier behind it inspected.
So you have the certifications and the affidavits just like anyone else would on that. So that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
What else on the QA/QC? Like again, from where you started to where you are now, what's been the transformation in that area?
Really just the industry's evolved. There's a lot more panelization going on. So we'll be in panel shops across the country. There's a lot here locally.
Like Capture or someone like that?
Yeah, Capture, Digital Building.
Yep.
A couple others here in town now too, and seeing that continue to evolve. So,
are you seeing, I think if you don't mind me going down all these holes and asking you questions, are you seeing it on the panelization? Was it just me, or did the Phoenix market have more of a commercial panelization and now they're going more residential? Or is it the opposite?
Definitely heavy commercial to begin with.
Right.
I haven't seen the residential really coming along unless
it seems like, well, again, ding me here, slap me. It seems like the build-to-rent market and kind of the REITs that are owning those, it seems like they're getting into a little bit more panelization. And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about what, the Kateras of the world were trying to do for a while.
Yeah, and I guess that's I just wrapped all those high rises downtown into commercial. So if we throw those in, there's quite a bit of panelizing.
Yeah, okay. Now we're on the same page.
Probably 50-50,
yeah.
But it's always, a more I don't know what category I would put that in. High rises and commercial.
Okay.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
Okay, so after QACC, what was the next one chronologically then?
Testing.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty quickly in the garage building my own equipment. My wife is quite skilled at drilling and tapping aluminum.
She gave him a lobotomy too, everyone. It was free.
Yeah, we've been in this together for a long time, and so looking back on building our first spray rack to test windows.
Oh wow.
I could probably still tell you where everything is at Home Depot. I used to just walk the store to know what was there. So as we tried to invent or evolve something, I could draw on all this knowledge because it's just parts and pieces, right, that we're putting it together with. But now, 3D printers have opened up even more possibilities. So testing was next, window chamber testing. The hose testing, spraying the outside is just, back then the nozzle that you have to use was $25.
Okay.
Now it's $250. Same nozzle.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Oh, do you have the patent on that?
Now somebody should have.
Come on, Brian.
So lots of testing being done now.
But now, again, tell the story of that was in your garage. Now what does it look like when you're mature?
Yeah, sure. So really it came out of necessity. I had hired somebody to do some testing. They came to the project. They had a daily rate, which
shocked you?
Shocks me. I mean, who else in construction is doing daily rates on things? Culture consultants, right? like window testing should not be this daily rate concept.
Right.
We should get paid for the work that we do, and we should be efficient at it. And so, yeah, I hired somebody else. I had to pay them out of my pocket. They wanted to be paid immediately. I was pay when paid, and I had a mortgage. I was young, and there wasn't a lot of cash flow, and so they couldn't get pressure all day. The industry's notorious for that. Finally got it at the end of the day, the window leaked, and he said, well, I guess I'm coming back tomorrow. And that was my entire monthly budget that I had to give him.
Wow.
And so I thought, you know what? The client was really unhappy. It was 4:00 before we could actually perform the test. They're all staying late. Then they get bad news. Then they're paying extra. I think in this case, they didn't actually pay extra. I couldn't bring myself to back charge them.
Right.
For our own incompetence. And so since I considered it my own incompetence, I decided I should bring it in-house. And so started inventing, putting together equipment. And now we have what we call a super vacuum. We used to look at a window and be like, oh, that's a 7 vacuum job. We need 7 little vacuums to get pressure. And we've got Sean Melcher in the office, one of my brothers, who's just constantly inventing and improving things. With the super vac, we can do anything. So
I love the name. Like it should have a name of like the Benford 4000 or something.
Yeah, well, super vac says
the
it all.
Melcher 4000.
If ever there's a job that's 2 super vacs, those are legendary. But it's changed everything now. We walk on a job and in 30 minutes we're ready to go. It used to be a half a day.
Right.
It still is for most of our competitors. So what it looks like now is anytime something goes even slightly wrong, kind of a 15-minute delay, the company's meeting about it. There's 10 or 12 of us running around Phoenix, 4 or 5 different kits, every little different configuration. And we do unit, we charge by the test. Mm-hmm. We have become so efficient and so focused on the product we deliver that we will actually retest for free.
Wow.
If you fail and you can, first we help you identify it, which I still can't believe it, but that does set us apart. Not every company out there. Some are, but not every company will help you find the leak. They just go, well, it leaked. It's like the old commercial with the cha-ching. And So we'll help you find the leak, and if it's something that you can correct while we're there, that stays within the rate. Makes our days better for sure. Certainly there's still projects where they're going to ask for additional testing. But if we can find it and correct it and get a pass that day, that's our goal. So that's what it looks like now.
So let's combine door number 1 and door number 3. So first one was review, and third one was testing. In the transformation of technology over the last 10 years, are you able to do any of that within the BIM, within the modeling, or even some AI or anything or isn't it come to that yet? You still have to physically, how do I say this? I know you still have to physically test it, but can you pre-test anything under the context that I just provided?
Well, we might be digging deep, so I'll go 2 directions.
Okay.
Yes, a lot of things related to curtain walls and windows are modeled, the thermal performance, even the structure, and then they'll build it and still do the test.
Right.
When we're talking about water leakage, a lot of times that's just how did somebody tool it? Was their battery dying as they screwed something together and it's not tight enough?
Got it.
So that part still has to be tested. Within a test, the system is being tested, and so is the installer.
Yeah, good point.
But what we've found is, and I'm looking forward to modeling being able to do a better job with those 3-way intersections.
Right.
For us to be able to model that, or even just model the mock-up and turn, pieces on and off to go through sequencing, sheathing, air barrier, through-wall flashing.
The sequence, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Because there's so many, and again, the whole human capital problem that we're all having, or the industry of that training, and no matter what you do, that sequencing that's the key right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This would be a great segue to our training component, but we're not there yet.
Okay, so keep going. What was the next one?
Sure. So within testing, that was just the window testing.
Okay.
And then we grew into electronic leak detection of waterproofing.
Oh.
That was with Progressive Roofing, one of our early believers. So we sought out some equipment, bought it, got trained on how to use it, and first project we worked with Progressive was Marina Heights.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty big one.
Yeah.
Lots of planters, a lot of hard work.
So
And,
how did that, again, put it into layman terms for the people watching or listening?
Sure.
What does that look like? How does it feel?
Well, now you go to there in Tempe and you see these buildings and they're gorgeous and there's walkways and driveways and plants. Underneath all of that, between all the buildings, is horizontal concrete that, obviously the planters would get wet and leak through onto the parking garage below.
Right.
So they use, in that case, I think it was hot applied waterproofing.
Okay.
And so this is a rubberized asphalt. They heat up, they put down, it spreads out evenly and basically seals it up watertight. But it can have little bubbles. At that time, there were, people would drive over it. There was trade damage that could occur. So the electronic leak detection, you run a perimeter wire, you get all the surface wet, and then run a little current. If you grew up on a farm, it's an electric fence wire.
Yeah.
And it won't even get you as good as an electric fence would.
Yeah, just don't pee on it, right?
Right. So there, we do get it entirely wet, and even then. So the water across the surface of the waterproofing carries the current. And if there's a pinhole, like even the tiniest one, the current will ground into the concrete, pinhole exposing the concrete. And so we have equipment. It looks like we're trying to find water in the 1800s, right?
Oh.
It's 2 poles.
The old witching guys,
Right.
The water guys.
And the current will run up the pole through the device and tell us whether it's going to our right or to our left, in one pole and out the other. And then it's like the video game Minesweeper, the first one on Windows where you're like, is it here? Is it? And you kind of work your way around. Same way, you move to the right, move to the left until you can pinpoint it. And then you can really just kind of kneel down and circle right where it is.
And then fix it.
Right.
Retest.
They'll mop it.
Yeah.
And then that technology has been amazing. It's been around for, probably more than 10 years, but we're using it.
Is there any
heavily now.
advancements on that then?
There continue to be more manufacturers.
Yeah.
The advancement really is the skill of the person testing.
Operator.
Yeah, because equipment can go wrong. That's usually where we see the biggest complaints.
Cool.
After that,
Keep
roof
going.
moist-
You're doing good. I don't have to hit you with a 2x4 yet. You're
Right.
right. You're right on track.
Also Progressive Roofing, roof moisture scanning. Just this incredible, think of about the size of a old-timey lawnmower with 4 wheels, and you push this scanner across the surface of a roof. So you've got a handle up here, and you're just pushing it across. And this this product, it's made by the same people that have the like drywall moisture meters. You know,
Oh, yeah.
when it rains and you're like, you didn't have the roof covered up, you're trying to figure out how much drywall you have to tear out of the building. And so you walk around with that drywall moisture scanner and it tells you wet or dry. What that scanner is actually doing is it's programmed to know what drywall should read. And it sends a current through the drywall,
Okay.
and then it reads what comes back. And it knows what dry drywall should read. So if it's wet, the current will actually magnify, and that's what makes the needle go up. So the same technology is used in a bigger product on a roof. It rolls across the roof. You calibrate it for each roof, and if there's water or moisture in the roof, either from a pinhole or even during construction, you know, if that didn't get closed up right in the rain and then they kept roofing, that type of moisture that would damage a roof, it will detect it.
So educate me and the audience is, you know, we look at these hundreds of thousands of square feet of industry, you know, all the tilt warehousing distribution that's going up.
Yep.
So the big boys, you know, say Progressive, let's say it's you know, Firestone, Carlisle, all the big manufacturers. Are they then doing this? Are they hiring you to then validate the inspections on these roofs, or how do the relationships and the testing work?
Yeah, so it can really go either way because everybody benefits from it. We do see Progressive Roofing kind of started this out with hiring us as a best practice. Global Roofing's been a quick adopter.
Yep.
General contractors now, in our typical scope of work, we put it in every project.
Oh, really?
So we're doc reviews, site visits, window testing, and the roof scan.
So how long would one of those, you know, big distribution centers take you guys to?
It'll take a few people a couple of days.
I was going to say that's a lot of.
And that's a lot of equipment investment too.
Yeah.
They run about 10,000 a piece, and so.
Ouch.
But also, do you really want someone up there for a week and a half? Like even the mental fortitude to get through that. So we like to tackle
Come in
it.
with a team. Yeah.
Yep. And then you know how you have equipment to double check the results.
Right.
But the owner benefits because at the end they get a building, you know, a roof turned over with no holes,
And the proper
no leaks.
warranty too.
Yep.
So
the
from
roofer
from
benefits.
underwriting, it's huge.
Oh, the roofer loves it too, right? Because what do they always say when you call them and they're like, oh, there's a leak, there's some damage or whatever it is. They go, well, someone must have been on the roof after we got off.
Yep.
Yeah. So this kind of puts that to bed. Also, they can turn over a report that says everything's good. The only drawback to it is you do have to wait for a rain. The roof systems are so thick that trying to hose it down won't work. And
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Brian.
yeah. So because it is so valuable, even in Phoenix, we had a stretch of 8 months without rain here a couple of years ago. Even with that, building owners and roofers saw enough value that they said, great, we'll go ahead and occupy, and we'll know that we have this date waiting to do this, and everyone will come back and play nice and get it done. And so, you know, there's horror stories that it helps avoid. We've seen roof systems completely delaminated from moisture that was trapped during construction.
Yep.
And, you know, of course, just the leaks that occur. So it's great at just finding leaks too. We get a lot of phone calls of, hey, we've got a roof leak. You know, spoiler alert is it's pretty much always the drain
Yeah.
or the mechanical equipment. But this allows
I could have told you that.
this gives you the science to kind of back it up. Great tool in identifying leak locations too. And then
You're doing great. Keep it up.
Thank you. We created a mock-up yard. Now, originally we thought we were going to be testing. This kind of came about because in order to become an accredited testing firm, you had to be an accredited testing lab. And then they didn't accredit just a field testing agency,
Okay.
which really,
When you say they, who's they?
yeah, they is AAMA,
Oh, yeah.
AAMA, and they're,
Would you give everyone what it stands for?
oh boy, we're going to have to cut that part out.
Okay.
American Architectural Manufacturers Association.
I don't care if you made it up. It
close
sounded
enough,
good.
right?
Yeah, you get a attaboy just for making it up.
Let's just hope they don't watch because we did just have our annual inspection this week. So
Listen,
really
tell
should
them
be fresh.
Tell them to come up with an easier name then.
I think so
Oh,
too.
they did. Llama.
Yeah.
Just think llama.
So not right about the time we were working to get our lab accreditation, they came out with a field testing agency accreditation.
Okay.
So we were the first in the country to achieve that.
First in the country.
Yeah. Well,
Way to go.
probably first to apply for it too, but we stand by first in the country.
Well, that was because you found the other end of the internet, so you knew
Right.
you had to do it.
Then about 2 weeks later, we got the lab accreditation. So we can test windows and doors, curtain walls. Basically, when you get a submittal of product data, or even just the product data sheet for a window. All those tests are able to be done in our lab. But we wanted to do the big stuff. We had been to some of our competitors, and a lot of times the feeling is kind of like that OSHA is this okay channel. Like, just it wasn't safe, and it didn't match the level of professionalism that these $500,000 mock-ups from government entities I think deserved. And so we determined to go and create a testing laboratory that matched that level. And so we started sticking I-beams in the ground. We were leasing at the time, and people were like, well, how do you do that with the landlord? Like, we just do it.
Yeah.
We do what we want. What we did do is stick a couple of, we put the piers in, and we had all threads coming out, and we bolted them down. And just about a year ago, we unbolted those.
Because you moved?
Yeah, because we moved. We bought our own space, and now,
way to go.
Yeah, more steel. We've got 2 or 3 mock-ups in there right now, and more heading in, and big airboat engine. Just really kind of a incredible process. What we've learned is, for the Arizona market, this is an awesome way to build a mock-up just for your project. Because when a mock-up comes in, and ASU's done quite a few, they'll build the facade just like they would on a job site. But on a job site, we just come out and put up a couple of plastic chambers and test just the windows. Well, in a mock-up facility, they build their mock-up, and then we enclose it. We seal it up tight. There's a submarine door to get in and out. And when you're testing, you're simulating a wind event, a rain event. So the wind-driven rain is what we're trying to prepare for. And we'll, instead of blowing from the outside every time, we'll do a vacuum from the inside. Yeah. So negative pressure simulating positive, And then
which is the right way to do it, yeah.
Right, and we've got this huge spray rack, but when we talk about panelized construction, both Capture and Digital Building have been big on getting their products tested too, because they've got panel joints and floor-to-floor joints, and those don't get tested on a regular mock-up. Now here, once it gets enclosed, you open that submarine door and go inside, and it's like you're in the building. And the entire thing gets sprayed, vacuumed to whatever the criteria is. If appropriate for the project, we break out the fan and it goes up to 100 miles an hour. That's more for fun.
Yeah.
But
makes for good entertainment.
Yeah.
Good social media shares.
For sure. And
if they'll allow you to.
Right. Actually, it's been really great for our team too, because we've got everybody that's out on job sites and doing doc reviews, and they're able to see firsthand, what these extreme mock-up performance tests are about. And they take those lessons and they, apply them right to the field.
All right, what's next? You're on a roll.
What's next? Well, some of the less exciting
that has to go right. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here. That has to go right into training now.
Let's go into the training.
Because all these things have now accumulated. It's like, hey, Brian, you might as well train on this. Instead of just being compliance, you might as well train.
Well, and that's what's so bizarre about our industry. And maybe I only know my industry, but maybe everywhere where there are experts, experts keep that knowledge close, right? Like, now that I have building enclosure knowledge, I have a marketable skill. I learned that 10 years ago. And I can teach it to other people and continue to market it and do it in a customer-focused way. That sets me apart. But there's really not building enclosure training for builders or for owners. There's training for people who want to become building enclosure experts. There's a lot out there from manufacturers for architects and things like that. But every day, all over this country, there are thousands of people who have been assigned the building enclosure as a general contractor. They have no experience in it. Pretty much, they're the go-getter on the team who doesn't say no. That's how everybody from the GC side gets into building enclosure. And so we continue to want people to have an opportunity to win. And we've learned that we don't create value by finding issues and finding problems. We create value by finding solutions. And so we don't work for anyone just once. Each of these clients that we've listed, we've been doing all their work for 10 years. And we believe that it's, one, we love them for it. But it's because we just keep going back out and, delivering a product that works. And when there's issues, we keep going. So the training is meant to give those people who we consider our friends a fighting chance.
Yeah.
We're not teaching them how to be consultants. We're teaching them the skills to manage a building enclosure.
What is the training done both in the field and then at your lab, or what? Like,
Yeah,
help me paint a picture for the audience of what's the allocation between the two? Because I think you'd have to do both, don't you, Brian?
Well, the lab's really nice because it gives us the field component.
Right, you scare the shock and awe and scare them a little bit.
Well, yeah, and we've got construction happening right there, and so we're able to bring them into a controlled environment. The process of the training started in person only.
Okay.
There's now an online component as well that's available.
Good job.
It gets you 18 AIA credits, so that's about what you need every year.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Bleu, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Bleu to get it done right the first time.
Maybe you said this before. Are you officially working with ASU in any capacity?
Well,
Not as a client. I mean, you know what I mean, like not working there on their buildings per se, but are you working with any of their programs, like like
so
the School of Construction Management or any engineering or anything like that?
maybe all of it. So I'll tell you what I know. So
Don't hold back, Brian. Come on.
Rafael De Luna, there at the CPMG
Yeah.
group there, he investigated the training, recognized the need within their group, within the industry really, and actually signed up for his entire department to go through the training over the last year.
Really?
So that was a big commitment, 40 seats there, really setting a standard in the industry.
And that's you already did that, or you're going through it?
They've got about 30 that have gone through.
Okay.
They have to find the right spot within their projects.
Got it.
Right? If they're already into Enclosure, it's probably too late.
Yeah.
They're too busy.
Exactly.
But that's been great. I also teach because of Dr. Tony Lamanna, pulling me in, and he's great. His outreach to the construction community, he'd be a great guest, by the way.
There you go.
The construction community has been incredible. So he pulled me in. I teach a building enclosure management course now at ASU, and have had the opportunity to work on
Dr. Brian Melcher.
working that way. Yeah.
Be careful.
I know, right? We'll have to come up with
the crazy mad scientist over here.
right. The nicknames right now are about as bad as Melcher Consulting was to begin with. So.
We'll let that go for the next episode.
And we've been lucky to work on a lot of ASU projects, either with the general contractor or in commissioning capacities.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So what haven't we covered? Well,
probably why the training. Why did ASU commit? Why is McCarthy just sent 40 people through in a pilot program? We've seen CORE really commit heavily to it on a nationwide level. I'm going to leave people out, but
no, but those are great examples of people know those names.
right.
Yeah.
So the building enclosure is 3 days. It's in our facility. The online course is about 20 hours, and it mirrors that experience in person. And we worked really, the very first class a year and a half ago was me lecturing for 8 hours. It wasn't great. It was terrible.
You're right.
It was
Well, at least
still
you're humble and honest.
Well, it was the best in the industry even then because it's the only thing out there. But that didn't stop us. We worked really hard to improve it. Worked with some people that do training for Microsoft and Wells Fargo, and they call themselves neuroscience researchers. What they are great at making really good training. So it's 3 days. It's it starts and ends on time. We've got breaks and lunches, and then there's hands-on pieces to all of it. And the big difference now is everything's taught. We call it the field verified way, where at the end of each component, you have practiced a skill so many times that you own it. You could teach someone else how to do it. And so over the 3 days we mix in the hands-on, not just to break it up so it's not boring, but it builds on, right at the beginning, they're putting on a rain suit. If you go to the website, you'll see that's kind of one of the graphics, because we all get how to keep water out
Right.
Right? If I say tuck your rain suit into your pants, even a kid would be like, what is wrong with you? And so building enclosure is just not that complicated. They get it. But we have fun with it, right? So
Right.
we have them tuck it in and we give them tape instead, right? So
Oh.
reverse lap. And of course, they're more comfortable with not the tape, with having it overlapped. And pretty quickly you can ask about, what if you wore your rain suit into one of those tear gas test chambers, right? Like that's not going to work. Well, it's not an air barrier. And then we want them to trust their gut and understand that they do get the concepts of it. And then we start practicing and they're working on, black and white details, tracing, looking for continuous air barriers. And the process is always, we explain why it's important. I show them twice, and we've got a beautiful workbook now that they work along on. So they'll do 2 or 3 times with me tracing the air barrier, tracking it. Then they'll work as a table. There's 4 or 5 of them, big poster of a detail. They work out that, then they copy it into their book. Then they do the next one, copy it into their book. And people that are, we'll have probably had 20 national quality directors come through. And so they're like flying through it. But then they start enjoying like teaching the young PE next to them. And so we mix up the tables that way. And all that, those guys are learning those people are learning how to teach others, something they've never done before, because quality's always been like, you got to get that guy to your site. Or you're having trouble, get the quality guy out there. And we're trying to shift that to let's help people understand better when there's an issue and when to ask for help. Because the other thing the quality group always says is, I wish we would have known sooner.
Yeah.
So we start with design phase. We're looking at scope gap, sequencing. They're going, along with what's on paper, we have little physical mock-ups. And then they'll go and build a masonry through-wall flashing after working with the detail. So there are some people that come through that they only know the field and they've never seen the dash lines, and that connects it for them. And there's people that only know the dash lines, probably too many of those.
Right.
And all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's what flashing is, right? And they get to be hands-on with it. And my favorite is when we're doing the metal panel and they get a self-tapper,
Oh, yeah.
right? We all know to be afraid of those. Like, don't try to use a self-tapper when somebody's watching you. So there's some humility that comes along with it, appreciation of the skilled trades. And through the second day, we're learning skills like sketching on a board. We think it's only certain personalities or experience level that will step up and start sketching. We leave all 25 people able to do that, because the sketching isn't, hey, let me sketch you a good detail. It's let me get everybody engaged and talking.
No, that engagement's critical.
So you can tell there's a lot of culture thrown into it.
Yeah.
We can't help it, because that's how you win at building enclosure. You need buy-in from everybody. You need to be able to make friends and compliment people, and so that's in there as well. And closes with the last mock-up they build is they install a window. And then they're writing a checklist for how to install the window, how to inspect the window, and then we take the window outside and they test the window. And so that's always a lot of fun. When you get a glazer in there, we go to lunch and you see them in the back with extra sealant and they're tooling, making sure all the fasteners are sealed. They're not going to let their window leak. But yeah, it's really a blast. By the end of the 3rd day, just great networking occurs, because we mix people up at different tables, and it's really the highlight of the month. We do it once a month.
Fun. All right, let me switch gears on you.
Yeah.
Lean business.
Oh, my goodness.
You're a Scrum guy, aren't you?
That's my hobby. Yeah.
All right. Open yourself up. Tell everyone what was your why. Because let me rephrase that. Most people that I found that have found this, they either had a passion or they realized they sucked at it and they realized they wanted to fix it.
All those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell the story.
Okay. So I have a passion for things going efficiently. I suck at helping other people be efficient. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So I've got a good friend, Felipe Engineer Manriquez. He's the author of Construction Scrum.
Okay.
And he teaches people to be Scrum Masters.
Right.
But I met him in Sweden. Yeah, out there with a friend, Jason Schroeder, during COVID. And so it was like, do you want to go to Sweden? I want to go anywhere right now, yeah.
Right. Let's just go.
So there's like 5 or 6 of these lean people and me, just because I was friends with the right person and I love to travel. And so I met Felipe there and we just hit it off. And he's like, yeah, I teach Scrum. And I was like, yeah, cool. whatever that is.
Yeah. What is that?
Well, and he explained it to me, and I was like, yeah, this is exactly how I think. And so I always tell him, I'm like, I think there's two types of people. People who, when they see Scrum, they're like, okay, yeah, this is how I already think, but this just lets the world see it. And there's the people that would never think in that process, and it helps them, do their best work by visualizing the process. Now, he doesn't agree with that, but I'm going to stand by it. So this was a way for me to, for the people I worked with, to force me to express what was in my head. The plan is always 9 steps down the road. And I get frustrated when step 2 is not ready for me when I get there, ready for them. And so I wasn't providing the clarity that I needed to. And then there were people that, very well-intended would jump on the most recent thing that was said, thinking it was the highest priority. And so the other why was to just help us keep our high priorities in front of us.
So I know what it is, but for the audience's sake, what is Scrum?
Yeah, it's an agile process. If you've heard of Last Planner, or if you've ever just put like Post-it notes on the wall of things that you have to do.
Well, most everyone knows what pull planning is.
Right.
So explain the difference or similarities between pull planning and Scrum.
Great question for a Scrum expert.
Okay.
And
you are one.
I am an expert in Scrum and none of those other things. So I guess a great question for a lean expert.
Okay.
But what I can tell you,
give me your best guess at the question.
Well,
tell me
so pull planning's to build a project, right?
Right.
And then Scrum is defined really just by a sprint, which is just a short task or series of tasks to one goal. And so within pull planning, you're probably going to have dozens of sprints.
Correct.
All, executed in this Scrum concept. So Scrum, you think it's an acronym, like super cool, really understandable methodology. I just came up with that.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
I can put the board down now. I don't have to hit you anymore.
Right, I can't repeat it. But so Scrum really is a rugby term, everybody pulling in the same direction. I'm from here, so I don't know anything about rugby. Apologies.
Tell your Aussie friends and European friends.
My best friend's Tongan, and his daughter's going to probably an Ivy League school playing rugby, so I should know better. But everybody moving in the same direction, that's the goal of Scrum, and everybody moves in the same direction when they can see what everyone's doing.
There you go.
And so for us, in short, we have it fine-tuned now to everything we do as a business, and now just think back to all the stuff we listed for the past forever, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Everything we do as a company each week goes on the board.
There you go.
And then we train our people up. We're continuing to level people up all the time so that we have that diversity of capacity. And we look at a week as something all of us have to accomplish.
As the owner and principal and the guy that started all this, what has it done to change the culture in your organization?
Okay. So, the fun part is to talk about the profit.
Okay.
But the culture obviously comes first before profit. And so culturally, things are less often someone's fault.
There you go.
And that makes everybody's day better.
Takes blame out of the game.
Right. Everyone
or at least you're not looking for it.
Yeah. And there's people that just put it on themselves all the time too, right?
True.
That make for a hard day. When people are happy, they work better. Truthfully, they probably work longer. If you want to be a kind of a miser, a Scrooge on that part of it. But we're constantly trying to better plan our day to exactly a day, right? And we're looking to be more efficient along the way. And we've got a place where if we knock something out faster, we know exactly what we're pulling in next. And so culturally, people are happier. We get more done. Everybody treats each other better.
So after your little epiphany in Sweden, did you come back and do it yourself, or did you have someone help you implement it?
Well, I did go through Felipe's online certification program.
There you go.
There you go, Felipe.
Shout out to Felipe.
Yep. And so I went through that, but really the way that we implemented it was I started doing it myself. And then people would say, well, I started doing it myself on a whiteboard with stickies in the middle of our office.
So everyone had to see
So everyone could see it, right? And it's just to do, doing, and done. Those are the 3 columns, and Post-its are in to do. Only one at a time and doing till it's done. One piece flow. And then as I would work on a project with someone else, at the time we were rolling out the training, so I was bringing people in on different projects, the three of us would work on it together. And then someone would see it. In fact, we called our Scrum board. And there's a funny video where he goes, from the makers of Scrum board, I give you, and he pants to his desk with these stickies on it, and he goes, Scrum desk. So people started to adopt it themselves. And then we got to about 80% adoption rate, and then it's mandated.
Yeah.
So that was the process.
Through the gauntlet down.
Yep.
Yep.
And then constantly reminding everyone that it can change.
What has it done to your recruitment?
It addresses everyone's pain point.
Right.
Yeah, whatever their pain point was, it's addressed through clarity.
Okay.
So
I was thinking like that clarity though gives you an advantage because everyone, like I'm patronizing you to a certain degree right now, walk in and go, oh, wow, these guys are organized. I want to work there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at what somebody's, lane is, because we do it a little different. We'll have a swim lane because in a given day we'll have 30 tasks that need to be done.
Right.
But they'll look at it and go, well, that's kind of a manageable day. And then we tell them, there's a person here whose job all day long is to make sure you know what the definition of done is. So if you have any questions about how to do it or it starts to struggle.
Talk to my brother.
Yeah. Well, we rotate too. So we're rotating our Scrum Master who's in charge.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, they'll do 2 weeks at a time, and we've just got people learning leadership skills like crazy.
So just to be conscientious of time here, what advice? So if anyone's interested in Scrum, I mean, other than Googling it and doing it, you said that it can be, other than learning about it online, you can actually facilitate the first chapter or I'm trying to say, like the first steps of implementing it. You can do it online and just do it organically, right? You don't need a true implementer.
Yeah. Well, if you go to the ebfcshow.com, ebfcshow.com, that's Felipe's page, and he's recently put out a lot of here's the first chapter of my book. Here's a quick start guide. And that's really what you want to do. You want to apply it in your own life just a little bit first. Yeah, it's great for Saturday chores.
Yeah.
Right? Put them up there. Pretty soon you realize I've got too much. Everyone can see this is too much because we're supposed to stop at whatever time or have fun or enjoy our weekend. What's the most important? And you pick those things. And then suddenly your weekend's better because you've taken the 4 things off. They were never part of your day. And you get those 2 things done. Yeah. Yep. You move them. You put the kids' chores up there. Or just, doing it at your desk. Scrum desk has already been patented, but by our friend Rolando. No, but doing it yourself too, and just seeing there's psychologically just moving things from doing to done over the course of a day is great, and that rings true for everyone. So yes, those are some good resources. Come see us do it.
There you go.
We love having guests in. When we do the training, people attend our morning huddle. We presented our morning huddle at the last Lean Congress, and we love to show it off and get feedback. That really reinforces the culture, right?
Good for you.
To let our people show off what they're doing. So,
all right. Last question of the day. What did I forget to ask you, or what do you want to share with the audience you came in here and it's like, oh, JJ forgot to ask me this. What's the one thing you want to share?
Yeah, I would be clear that the team that's around me is incredible. That I can pull out for the day and come do this. They're just doing amazing things, and I'm grateful for them.
Well said. That's good leadership right there. Thanks again, Brian, for attending today.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.